welcome back. Today's episode is going to focus on the Jungle Cruise. Yes, I was once a Jungle Cruise skipper way back in the day. I have gotten a lot of questions of what I did prior to my artistic roles at Disney, and today we are going to be focusing on that journey and the adventures that it withheld. So without further ado, let's get going. Hit it, Skip. As always, if you are new here, welcome. My name is Royce. I'm a painter, sculptor, and a collector. And amongst many things, I am a Disney fanatic, just like all of you. Growing up with the company, I definitely had my share of various roles, and the Jungle Cruise for me was definitely a fantastic starting point. I started the Jungle Cruise in 2012. I did the Disney College program, and I should do a whole video on that on itself. So people ask me, well, what was it like being a skipper? So let's begin with the training and what it's like being trained to be a skipper. I was trained on the Jungle Cruise by Randy Grant. I have no clue if he's still there, but he was like a 35-year veteran with the company, which I just found insane. I don't know if I could work anywhere that long, even if I truly loved it. I get bored. I don't know how he did it, but Randy Grant was my trainer, and I know a lot of my colleagues was trained with multiple people, and it was just me and him. So, I mean, for one, it's a good thing because I got a lot of like one-on-one attention, but then it also was a little bit awkward at times just because I had to obviously not only be taught how to drive, but then also just did my spiel in front of him. And it was just very awkward with just one person staring at you in the middle of the boat. So the training process to be a skipper, it's about a 5-day journey if I remember correctly. And basically the first 3 days you are learning kind of just how to operate it and the safety of the whole skipping experience. And then I think you actually have guests on board and you rehearse the last 2 days, and then you take one cruise by yourself with I think it was like the lead at the time, and they sign you off. So from my memory, the first like 1 or 2 days of being trained, it's kind of boring. You kind of sit in a classroom and you kind of watch videos and you read a lot of like the manual, more in depth of how to actually operate the throttle, how you go back, how you operate the lift for the wheelchair accessibility boat. And I'll get into which boats were my favorite and which boats were not. For those of you who don't know, there are quite a bit of boats, and some go very fast, some go very slow, some are known to break down, and some are just amazing, like the Amazon Belle. It's been a while, so bear with me. I'm trying to remember the best that I can. So day one, you kind of just go through the manual and you just discuss things of how safety and protocol and where you can evacuate guests, stuff like that. And then day two, if my memory serves me correctly, you watch the skipper that's training you, kind of what he does. And then, okay, I remember this track switch thing. It's right there after you get off the boat on the dock. It's like hidden in this like wooden crate, and it lifts up and you have track switches that switch the actual boat track. Sorry to ruin the magic here, but the boat track, that it switches it from the main line that goes into the attraction to the backstage. To this day, I never understood what I was doing, and luckily there was always somebody else there to help me because I had no idea how to work that thing. It was extremely stressful, and I honestly hated it. The fun part came when you were actually able to finally rehearse your spiel. Now, you can kind of throw in your own jokes here and there, but for the most part, it is scripted, it is approved, and it is signed off. The binder of jokes, I'm not kidding you, was like this thick. It was insane. And I guess if you've been a skipper, you can kind of throw in your own joke. I assume you have to go to like the management team and say, hey, I want to add this to, you know, the joke binder to choose from. Reading all of the jokes, some were terrible, some were really funny. I kind of went with just like the basic, safe, what everyone else was kind of doing. When I started, I'm in year 2, I obviously got a little bit more comfortable with the jungle and I was able to give my own takes and my own jokes. All clean, all Disney approved. Although I did get in trouble once. Here's a story. I did get in trouble by the lead because I said with the trap safari up there with the rhino, I said, oh, look, there's my friend Ohontas. It looks like that rhino's trying to poke Ohontas. He didn't like that. And I remember being pulled off the boat and he was saying, you can't say that joke, it's inappropriate. And I heard that in Florida and I told him like, hey, they said this in Florida, why can't I say it here? And apparently there is a difference. I don't know. So rehearsing your jokes was very, very important. And I kind of had it down packed even before I started. I rode the attraction many, many times. So I knew what I was getting into, but I really didn't at the same time. There's just so much more to it. You have to be not only listening to the gunshots, and we'll get into that later on. Also, the environment, bamboo falls, you can't go in front of it. Like there's just so much. You have to be constantly watching, making sure people are seated. A lot of times the figures won't be working, so you're kind of like, okay, what do I do? Oh, look, they have stage fright, they're frozen in fear. I am not a comedian by any means, and there are some comedians on there that like, okay, this is what you're made to do. But for me, it was a lot of work, honestly. Like I enjoyed talking and getting to take people, you know, through adventurous jungles, but that job was work. And let me tell you, I got paid very, very little. And I am going to say this on the mark. I think that the Jungle Cruise skippers, for what they do, are extremely underpaid. I think that they should be paid entertainment rate because you are putting on a show every 8 minutes, all day for 8 hours. My voice was so sore for many months. I got dizzy because I remember when I was first starting out and I was driving home from training, I was like this, and because I'm rocking all day, I was driving and I felt the car rocking. It was very weird, very weird. My favorite type of cheese is pepper jack. I love a kick in my food. I love tomato. I love onion so much, so I put onion on everything. My partner, I don't know what he calls it, sasson, I'm not really sure, but this is by Kidners or Kindners, I'm not very sure. And it is the blend. It's salt, pepper, and garlic. It is so good. I put it on everything. And then I'm also a huge pepper fan, so I put pepper on everything as well. Completely off topic, but I have to tell you, I have an absolute obsession, and this video is not sponsored by any means, but Tostitos Hints of Lime chips are life-altering. They are so good. I highly recommend them if you've never tried them. They are delicious with any sandwich. Divine. Divine. Okay, back to the jungle. A really fun memory also was the costume. So Disneyland has this huge, gigantic warehouse full of costumes for attractions, for food and beverage, for just basically any costume needed. It's in this huge, gigantic building. And I'm gonna say that the costumes at Disney are not form flattering. They are very interesting the way they are designed, because I always was like 10 times sizes bigger than my normal size, and they just always fit very interesting. But it was also a really fun costume. I mean, you get to either wear pants or shorts, and you have this fun little safari shirt on, and then you have this hat that you can either always wear or you always have to have it strapped around your chest. But that was a very crucial part of the costume, and you had to be in full costume when you were being a skipper. So my first rehearsals, I remember they were very, very interesting, just because, like I said, I was alone with Randy. I don't want this video to bash Randy. He was a very nice guy, but I just think anytime you're alone with somebody and you're on a mic and you're just staring in a new environment, working a new machine, it was just a lot to take in. And it was just very stressful because I had to time my jokes right, and just like any comedian, timing is everything. Eventually, I did get very good, and I was good at timing and just knowing where things were and when they were gonna happen and all of that. So eventually you get to the point where it's your last day of training and they don't tell you when they're going to put a whole group of people on your boat, because you always are waiting for the boat to be loaded and you kind of just like follow them when you're training because no one's in your boat except you and your trainer. And I remember the first time we pulled up and lead or the trainer, I forgot who, was like, throw them in. And I was like, what? No, I'm not ready. Let me tell you, if you are shy, this is not the job for you, because it was very, very like intense. You have 40 strangers just staring at you, waiting for you to, you know, put on this show for the next 8 minutes. And I just remember that first trip. It was so stressful. But I also remember my first solo trip and how fun that was and how rewarding that was, knowing that all the work paid off. And that's one thing, a day-to-day life in this, being a skipper, was very, very rewarding, but it was also extremely tiring. You clock in, you go to the boat, and you see like there's like this little chart and it tells you, okay, you're gonna bump out this person. So it has like a bump out system. Basically, you start out on the dock, you go into the boat, and then you go back to the dock, and then you go on break or lunch. I did not understand that system for a very long time, and I would always mess up everyone's lunches and breaks, and the leads eventually got to the point where they did not trust me or just told me where to go, because it was a very confusing system in my defense. And I don't know if they still use that, but I just was not a fan. If you didn't have a boat and you were considered a dockhand, that was a little bit more of a fun job because you got a little bit more freedom. You would walk through the queue and make sure everything still looks good. My favorite pastime was going to Tarzan's treehouse. Tarzan's treehouse apparently was staffed at one point in the past. I don't remember when. It falls under the skippers to go and walk through the attraction. And well, at the time of this filming, it's not there anymore. They're retheming it to Encanto, I've been told. You would walk through that, and Tarzan is one of my all-time favorite Disney movies, and no one else would want to walk through it. It is a lot of work, you know, it's a lot of exercise up and down, but I just loved it because I loved that ride. I loved seeing Tarzan and Jane and Sabor, so I was like, I'll do it. So that was my favorite pastime. So you know when you pass the hippos and the skipper does the 2 shots to scare away the hippo. That is a 2-part deal. 1, it is for show, but for 2, it also is a timing device, basically. It tells the skipper that you are in front of and behind of where you are. So for instance, the scene right after the hippos, it used to be the dancing natives, now it's the monkeys in the boat. If you're still there and you hear the shots, you better get moving because that boat is so close to your scene and you won't have enough time to catch up. So that was a very, again, it's all about timing. And also, if you are exiting the Trap Safari scene and you barely hear the shots, you're too close to that boat. So timing was everything as being a skipper. And also, the shots that you hear not only indicate where things are, but they also have different meanings. And I'm only gonna tell you one because I don't really remember all of them, but the dreaded 6 shot. If you are a skipper, you know all about this. Heaven forbid you derail. Now, and I told everyone, full disclosure, that yes, the boat is on a track, but I would tell guests it's on water, but occasionally they do drift, and they are areas of the jungle that are prone to derailing, and they are called the S curves or the C curves. And basically it's right after you exit the gorilla scene with the flipped over Jeep. There is they're the gorilla trying to reach for the bananas. When you turn into the Nile River, that's a derail zone. When you turn into the hippo pool, that's a derail zone. When you turn out of the hippo pool, that's another derail zone. Those are called S curves, C curves, and those are very, very known areas for a boat to derail. And I was always so afraid of that happening. I've seen derails not only in those positions, but also my dear friend Elena, if she's watching this, I remember she accidentally derailed. And remember I was telling you earlier about that track switch? Well, the track switch that switches from the attraction line into the maintenance bay, it wasn't me, which for me honestly is a miracle because I could have seen myself doing this, but somebody accidentally didn't switch it back right. And you know, I can't blame them. It's really hard not being able to see where the track is because it's underwater and it's dyed green, so you really can't tell if it is connected or if it's over here. So she was like la 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 la, like going full throttle, like thinking she was gonna go right back to the dock. She drifted into the building. It was very dramatic, and it was just one of those times where you have to pay attention and really make sure. And this is why I hated the track switch system. I avoided it like the plague. And another really fun pastime, we didn't get to do this all the time, but were safaris. And safaris were basically at the end of the night, or sometimes even during shifts, we would go out into the jungle and walk it. And let me tell you a little bit about Disneyland's Jungle Cruise. It is not as big as you think it is, but it's also not as little. There are different spaces and different areas. You can go on top of Schweitzer Falls. You can go in between the Nile River. Just certain areas are very, very complex to get to and to access. My favorites were obviously the hippo scene all along the railroad. You get to walk in like that very steep terrain. It was just very, very beautiful. And it's very, very fun to hide behind these giant old eucalyptus trees and like watch boats pass by and you hear the shots and stuff. It's very, very fun. And that's when you get to hear whether skippers shoot or not. Some skippers don't. The noise does affect your ear, and I did go home with ringing ears many, many times. Not as much as Indy. So obviously when you work attractions, you also work in different roles. Working Indiana Jones for me was not my favorite. It was extremely, extremely loud. It's usually a first or a second. I happened to get it as a third. I got Jungle Cruise first, and then I was cross-trained to steam trains as a conductor. And then I went to Indy, and I really honestly didn't want it. I had nothing against Indiana Jones, but for me, it was just a push button attraction, and I didn't want to do that. I liked going with people. Think of the Jungle Cruise, I went with them. Steam trains, I went somewhere with them. I just didn't like sitting somewhere and pressing go, gates closed, goes, gates closed. So it really wasn't my thing. It was just so loud, and you hear the boom from the giant boulder every 2 seconds, and it did affect my hearing. Safaris were always fun. All of this training and all of this experience being a skipper really helped me later on in my next role. When I got into figure finishing, I remember the Jungle Cruise project that we did in like 2015, and we were completely refurbing all the figures. The water was drained, and I remember before it was drained, we did like a project overview, and we were gonna go ride the boat. No one knew how to operate the boat, and one of the leads was like, hey, well, he knows. And I was like, oh gosh. And I never thought I would be able to operate a Jungle Cruise boat again, but there I was, and I remembered exactly how to work it, and it just brought back so many memories. And all the guys on the boat were like, do the spiel, do the spiel. I even to this day remember the spiel. It would probably take me one rough draft or one time around the jungle just to like refresh my memory, but I know I could do it. I get asked all the time if I could do it, and I definitely think that if you do something so many times a day, 9 minutes for 8 hours over and over and over again, it's not only embedded into your brain, but I think it's embedded into your soul. And you know, just overall being a skipper was such a fun job, and you get to work with a lot of fun people, and there's a lot of opportunities to do private tours. I've seen many proposals. I got to have Selena Gomez on my boat. I remember seeing the Backstreet Boys. I also seen Guy Fieri. Like, there was just a lot of celebrities that came. If you're a new skipper, I think one of the best things to learn is every boat will be different. You have to keep in mind that the energy that the audience feeds you helps the skipper's performance. I don't know if that makes much sense, but if the boat is quiet, it's hard for a skipper to really eject a ton of energy and a lot of fun into it because it's dry. I remember a couple Chinese visitors that they were not saying anything, they weren't laughing, but they also weren't sitting either. And that was another time where you have to actually just stop the boat and you have to tell them, sit down, and they don't understand, and they just like shook their head and smiled. And I'm just like, no, like you have to remain seated. That was very, very stressful for me. Being a skipper was fun. And then being able to actually paint the figures just really brought full circle for me with my Jungle Cruise experience. I'll never forget painting the elephants, painting the piranha, painting the tiger, the lions, the hippos. I mean, we really did everything. I only painted one native, and it was like his right arm. I don't know where the natives are anymore now that they're taken out. They're probably in the archive somewhere. I wonder where that arm was that I painted. It was very fun. Oh, the Jungle Cruise. It's a great ride. It's also a great movie. I actually really enjoyed the Jungle Cruise movie. I had very low expectations, I'm gonna be honest, just because I don't feel every attraction needs a movie. I think that you should just leave certain things as is, and I was very concerned that they were going to incorporate aspects of the movie into the ride, because pirates is one thing. Pirates is pirates, and Johnny Depp is Johnny Depp. Bless his soul for what he's going through right now, but I feel like an original attraction, just leave it as is. It's great the way it is, and it doesn't always need to be changed Hollywood-wise because it's not always gonna last forever, but these attractions have, and that is why I really, truly feel that Imagineering needs to focus more on original attractions, because all of your favorites, Pirates, Mansion, Small World, Tiki, I mean, I could go on and on. Those are all original attractions that you love, and then they were adapted. I feel like they're taking the easy way out with adapting films. Now, certain films, of course, they're born to be attractions. I mean, I honestly think Atlantis was born to be a land. I remember pitching that idea to Imagineering. I also pitched Cusco. Now, I already pitched this idea. It's somewhere on a shelf, but you remember, obviously, Pull the Lever Crunk, and they get into the little roller coaster and they zoom down to her lair. I designed a whole attraction around that, and I think it'd be so much fun. And I was told, well, not enough people like or know those characters. So it's just very interesting to me, the attractions that get chosen and the rides that get the blessing from the art directors, because some of them I'm just like Rise of the Resistance is great, but I think that more original content is the way to go. All right, everyone, I hope you had a wonderful day with me. I had a great time reliving my Jungle Cruise memories. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button below. That way you are notified whenever I upload a new video. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and always remember not just to follow those dreams, but to chase them.